Oh, hi Fiona. So I'm shooting this very sad video, but I have a very cute little friend with me. So if you hear snorts, thank you. You hear snorting in the background, it's my little Frenchie. Thanks for joining me today. This was an unexpected video topic. Wasn't really prepared, but I figured I needed to do something. The reason I started, and still she persisted, was to be a support for people out there that are going through hardship in their relationships, life in general, things that maybe we just don't talk about that much. I wasn't planning on speaking about the subject I'm talking about today, but truth be told, it might be a bit cathartic for me to talk about. My mother died last week, and it has been really hard, to say the least. It's up and down with emotion, and not to go into too much detail on all of that, what I wanted to focus on was what happens or how you feel and how to process the grief that you feel when a toxic or abusive parent does pass away. Now, in my case, my mother and I were sometimes very close and sometimes not very close. Really depended on how she was doing mentally. That made it very hard in my childhood and in my adolescent years and also in my adult life, especially when I had my own children. I learned late in life that I had to protect myself and that verbal abuse is not okay, emotional abuse is not okay. I don't have to hang on the phone with this toxic person and just take it. I had control. I could use it. I could say, you know what, I can't listen to this right now. I'll call you another time, or just say, you know what, I'm not going to listen anymore, goodbye. I learned some tools, simple tools like that, to enable me to not get strung along in a cycle of abuse. I used that tool quite often in my adult life. My mother was full of love and, surprisingly, full of empathy. But mental illness is different things to different people. Grieving this loss has been really hard. I almost feel like because we weren't always on the best terms, that I don't have a right to feel the grief that I currently am going through. But that's just something I'm telling myself, and that's something I have to recognize as complete and total bullshit. At the end of the day, it's your parent, it's your mom, it's your dad that has passed away. And that is a big deal. That is the foundation of your life, of your childhood, whether you were abused or not. And in my particular case, I had loving and wonderful times with my mom, and I also had really bad, horrible times with my mom because of her mental illness. She was up and down. You could call it bipolar. You could label it whatever type of personality disorder you wanted to label it as. But it was hard growing up. I think because we're daughters or we're sons of toxic parents, we're expected to take it. We're expected to deal with it. But you're not. You're a human being. And just because this person was a parent of yours doesn't mean that it's okay to take abuse and all of the things that say you're supposed to do this or you should do that because they're your parent. It's all bullshit. I respect everything my mom did in terms of her intentions. She always had the best of intentions, but her mental illness got in the way of so many of those things. And I have to always remember that without mental illness and with it, she was always my mother. I loved her the best way I knew how, through and through. and you mourn that loss. And you can't beat yourself up for how things were when your abusive or your toxic parent dies, because in the end it is all forgiven. Just 1 week post her passing, I'm in a weird place, I guess. I feel like I'm waiting for her to contact me. I'm waiting for a sign, a dream, just anything. And every day that goes by and I don't hear or see or feel her is devastating to me. And I guess maybe that's the denial and the grief that's coming forth as the denial leaves my mind. So things you can definitely expect is the level of grief when your toxic parent dies is probably going to be greater than you ever thought possible. There's a kind of a war going on where as much as you and your parent differed and struggled and couldn't be together at times, it's also your mom or your dad. There is going to be a parental bond there that is just devastating when it's broken. Just knowing that she's not there in life is hard enough. So get a support system. Don't feel like you're a burden. That's one of the things I've been going through too, where, like I said before, I almost don't feel like it's okay for me to grieve because we weren't the typical mother-daughter, or we didn't have the typical mother-daughter relationship. But I guess who does? We grieve, and it's okay to grieve. You take your time with it. But also know that you didn't do anything wrong. If you severed ties with your toxic parent and they pass away, it's okay. You had every right to protect yourself in this life, to continue on your journey to your best life. And if a parent is preventing you from doing that, from living fully, you had to do what you had to do. And it's a hard thing to do. And some people don't realize how devastatingly hard that is to make those tough choices. So never regret that. Your parent isn't dwelling on that in death. When I found out my mom passed away, it was an initial shock. I didn't know what had really happened. My mom had been sick for a long time, kind of chronically ill with kidney disease, dementia that had gotten worse and worse in the last few months. And she's always had issues walking around. And she also had multiple sclerosis, which we know is a degenerative illness. She refused to be taken care of. She never wanted to be in a home care facility. She might accept somebody coming into the house to help her, but even those were a bust. I mean, I called a couple of folks to help her and she would just send them home, or she just wouldn't let them do their job. It was just horrible. You know, she didn't trust anybody. So you've got dementia going on, you've got her being absolutely stubborn, and it was a challenge for sure. What I had been dealing with, you know, emotionally prior to her passing was, you know, she's going to die alone. How can I let this happen? What can I do? And I guess looking back, I did everything I could. I tried to get her to live here. I called a home health aide. I tried to get adult services to check in on her, to do an assessment. And in the end, she died alone. And that paired with the grief of losing your mother is horrendous. It really makes me have a newfound respect and empathy for people out there who have lost their loved one in a way that wasn't expected, that was violent or tragic. I know it could have been worse, but it was very heartbreaking. I do know who my mom was when she was lucid, in her moments of clarity, how much she loved me, how much she loved her family, her granddaughters, and how she would be pissed about how upset I am over her death. You will have good days, and you will have really bad days. And man, they go up and they go down so unexpectedly. It's been crazy. I'm not used to feeling this way. I mean, I was at a restaurant yesterday having dinner with my husband, and I just put my fork down and I had to run to the bathroom. I was overwhelmed all of a sudden with grief for no particular reason. I wasn't thinking about anything in particular. It's just overwhelming. So those things you can expect. My brain has been cloudy. It's like I'll have conversations and not really remember them. I think of certain things about her death that will just paralyze me. But in the end, like I said, death really is a part of life. They just don't tell you how hard it is when it hits, how hard it is for the family. And grieving for somebody that was both my mother and also somebody I feared as a child, and who had an incredible impact on me emotionally in terms of trauma and things like that. It's been hard for anybody going through this or expecting to go through this, worried about their parent dying on their own, you not being there. I would give you some advice. The first is do what you can from afar. If you know that your parent is having a hard time living on their own, do what you can to get them help. Whether you tell them that you're going to do that or not. Call adult social services if they're a county that they live in. Maybe have a home health person. Call these agencies that can come out and at least try. When it does happen, or if it has happened to you where your parent has passed away and you're dealing with this grief, know that your mom or your dad is definitely resting. I feel like for parents or for anybody with mental illness, I believe that they pass away and that illness no longer exists anymore. What I would want for my children is to know that I love them and the regrets that I had, and to know that all was forgiven. So I think you should know that you're forgiven, and that if you have it in your heart to forgive your parent, that's something you should work through. It's a really good idea to find support because every situation is really unique. So if you have a therapist, definitely utilize that. If you have, because it's so hard to mourn the loss of your parent and also know the things that were done to you by that parent in life. Depending on the issues that you had with your parent, what you can do is maybe focus on the fact that what good came out of it. For instance, you were born. If you have children because of your parent being alive and being in this world. What did you learn from being the daughter or the son of someone like this? Are you a more compassionate person? What were your takeaways? What can you do better as a parent? How can you prepare your own family for your death, for your passing? Because what I've realized is that suffering and grieving is a part of love. I wouldn't have any of it if I didn't have extreme love for my mom. And then it takes time, and it takes a willingness to sit there in the really hard, dark places of grief and feel it. But it's also good to understand that you need to jump out of that at some point too. And I think it's a 2-step forward, 1-step back process. Yesterday I was a mess. I don't think I left my bedroom for 8 or 9 hours. Today's better. I showered, I got dressed, had coffee. If you have any comments or questions, or would like to share any personal experiences around the death of a toxic partner or a toxic parent, anything of that nature, I would love to hear from you. Thank you so much for watching this. If you liked this video, please like and subscribe to my channel and keep persisting.